This facade wrap all the way around. Indoors, folks, again, we've got to make sure we stay right along the blue and gray tour mats. Make sure the flash and the lights off when you're taking pictures and videos, please. Thank you very much. Come on in, folks. We've got plenty of room for us all. Just make sure we stay right along these blue and tour mats as we're walking throughout that house. Inside, folks, make sure we're staying right along these blue and gray tour mats here. I'll just kind of keep moving along. Got plenty of room for us all right inside. All right, everybody, welcome on into the assembly room. As that name might imply, this is where you as a guest are generally going to be assembling. It's usually the very first room that you're brought into when you're visiting William Rundle Hearst. Here, this is likely where you're going to be meeting Mary and Dave for the first time. I mentioned to you before that he was married to his wife, Millicent. She wed in 1903, this was between 1904 and 1915, but their 5 sons were born. By the time 1926 rolled around, he and his wife, that is the year they separated, lived out of divorce, the same year that he also began openly living with Miss Davies. She was a Ziegfeld Follies stage dancer in New York City, came out here to California, was a silent film star, and then transitioned quite well into the talkies, even considering she had overcome a little bit of stutter. But she'd go on to be his lifelong girlfriend and companion, often acting as a hostess up here. She was known to have this very warm and welcoming personality towards everybody that came through, be they guests or staff. She was described as the bubbles in the champagne. I like to think of her as a pop from the court. Now, folks, in here, you'd be busy with the other guests looking around the yard. You might hear about the story that William Rundle Hearst bought this 16th century French mantle, originally housed in the Château de Jours in the Burgundy region of France. He was very excited when he caught it in there. The figures on either side are called caryatids. I'll get to show you some of Julia Morgan's versions of caryatids once we get into the theater towards the end of the tour. But you can be discussing all this art over cocktails right in here. That's where Cocktail Hour was hosted. But W.R. Hearst, he's known to serve some notoriously weak drinks. David Nibb, the big fancy fella, he said that he'd take a thimble of gin, pour it into a punch bowl, and that's what was served to us during Cocktail Hour. Cary Grant, he had a recommendation. He said, make sure you get up to Cocktail Hour early. Mr. Hearst only has 1 pitcher of these weak martinis mixed up. If you're quick enough, though, you might be able to grab yourself a second one. Of course, he knows all a little bit more. Uses a notice elevator that Julia Morgan had installed in the fall of 1928. He comes out this door right over here. And he's by out for Cora Older. She called this the secret entrance to the assembly room. Now you come through that door, chase some social niceties with us. We like to lounge about on the sofa over here on the north side. But our cue that it is just about time for dinner. He's going to rise from that sofa, walk over to Miss Davies, take her by the arm, and leave.
You see? You see the crate on
Come on in, everybody. We got plenty of room here. Alrighty, folks, welcome on inside. This is his refectory. It's another name from a monastic dining hall. Perhaps you can imagine a group of monks sitting along a table such as this. They look a little bit out of place. Ketchup and the mustard. Still their original condiment jars. You might be wondering, why would William Arnold first have a dining hall like this? Not have these placed into proper serving saucers. Well, for him, folks, this was always the ranch. So I was drinking gambling as a young boy. So it's like a childhood nostalgia for him. He usually sat right about here. His stations would be seated opposite of him. As a guest, you might be placed next to one of your hosts beginning your stay. The longer you're here, you might be moved down a little bit further. It's a way to give more people opportunity to get to know their hosts and vice versa. The meals that they serve to you, they're said to be American and simple. We have it roast turkey, turtle soup, fruit pie, ice cream for dessert. Maybe even treat you some dry meat. The poultry farm down below near the visitor center. We walked through a little bit of the orchards. I did read that the turtle meat was canned. The ice cream was likely coming from the army. A little down to the southwest. These days, the postal population of about 18 people or so. Looking around here, see these family squire stalls. That's what was lining the walls of the room that we just left. Those ones were Italian, 15th, 16th century. These ones here came from Spain, and they are 15th century. If you look on either side behind me, you'll see a red pillow. It shows them folded down in the proper seating position. Little tiny seats you see along these. It's called a misery quarter, or mercy seat. The idea behind it is if you're wearing your choir robes or your clergy robes, it will give you the opportunity to get off your feet. It still gives you the appearance that you're standing along the Catholic pathway. You say these are not flags, these are banners. And they're representing the Palio di Siena. It's a very intense bareback horse race that's been ongoing in Siena, Italy, since about the 13th century. Those races, they usually take place July 2nd and August 16th. Both of them got rained out a little bit this year. July's winner was the Contrada di Onda, the wave and dolphin district. That is this light blue and white banner directly above me. In August, the race took place on the 17th this year. The winner was the Contrada. Either side, as long as you stay right along the race were advanced.
Que le encantaba eso.
Yes.
Was his wife already dead, or did she?
No, they separated without divorce. She really just stayed on the East Coast. She was out here September 1929 when it was Churchill's. Come on in, folks. So this is called the morning room as we are facing east. But it's really was used more as an afternoon entertainment room. Inside, but the sofa and the chairs kind of in a semicircle. After the theater was finished off in the early 1930s, you still use this as a nightly review room. There was a guest who said that he thought this was the best place in the world for a good film, but it'd be a rough crowd for a bad film. I like to imagine coming in here with Marion Davies and kind of poking fun at all the other Hollywood people that are around here as guests. The room, though, really shows us a prime example of how these ceilings at Casa Grande have generally been modified into rooms, not vice versa. The original portion of the ceiling is a bright red that we see above us. This is a 15th century Spanish ceiling done with the fusion of Christian and Moorish art influences. That Moorish art influence is a lot of the geometric patterns, the shapes, and even some of the floral designs. The modern extension work is the dark border that's wrapping around. Julie Morgan had centuries of smoke and soot adhered to the ceiling. So we had a conservationist, a man named Gary Holbert. He diligently undertook the task of cleaning it off. using a cotton swab of Q-tip and a little bit of solution. Started his project in March 2011, finished off in November 2022. A little over 11 years is what it took him. In February of last year, I was lucky enough to meet a woman who actually knew William around up Hearst. Her father worked up here for him as a gardener and groundskeeper. She was good friends with one of the grandsons, John Jr., but by the nickname of Bunky. She told me that Mr. Hearst had intentionally purchased this ceiling covered smoke. He liked the aged effect that it gave to him when it went to the room. I do wonder though, maybe there's something about the ceiling that just draws the smoke right on up to it. There's a fireplace here to my right. There's no
Okay, you guys.
All right, everybody, so this is his billiard room. And in William Randolph Hearst, it was actually uncommon for women to be allowed a billiard room. That wasn't the case up here. He is greatly influenced by his mother, Phoebe Appleton Hearst, a philanthropist who often done to provide financial aid to young women looking to further their education, like Julia Morgan. It's most likely through his mother that he met his architect. It's pretty silly of him to have Miss Morgan design and build his country estate, including the billiard room, only to adhere to these archaic social norms. As I mentioned, though, that's not the case up here. We'd all be welcome to come and play a game. You might recognize the table closest to me on this end. It's a pocket billiard table. In the United States, we call them pool tables because during the Great Depression, folks would go to pocket billiard halls. See, the tapestry that's along this wall here was made in Belgium by about 1500. It's a milled fleur tapestry, which means 1,000 flowers. It's showing us a hunting scene. The hounds are going after the stag in a pursuit on horseback. I really enjoy the bottom center portion there. You see there's a dog. Looks like she's recently had some puppies, and she's over that stag hunt. She's not looking at it anymore. She's getting some nice scratches of love behind the ears from that man in the red with blue trousers. W.R. Hearst, he was a dog lover, raised dachshunds up here, had his beloved little Helen, later on Helena. Miss Davies had a little dachshund of her own, and those pups were said to be fairly well behaved when their humans were in the room. That's just that. So perhaps if you're in here attempting a game of care with Roy Rogers, you saw Mr. Hearst and Miss Davies walk through, this might be an indication to you it's just about time for the nightly movie in the theater. And if those little dachshunds were in tow, it's probably going to be a good idea for you to call it quits with care. Room in Casa Grande. This one is even larger than the assembly room that we first entered going into the big house here. The figures that are lining these walls, these are Julia Morgan's versions of caryatids. They're made out of cast plaster, so they're not actually structural, so they can't hold all the way to the steel and the concrete that's right above us. William Randolph Hearst would be showing you the latest and newest films of his day, picking up the receiver and telling the projectionist, "Oh, just put on Peg of My Heart." Arm. She appears to have been raiding the fur vaults underneath us. She started a movie called The Patsy with Marion Davies, and this is her on the left, the blonde with the bob haircut. She's going to come up and mug the camera for us. She'll walk a little bit of her. If you are above 6 feet tall, that's not.
turn around the room. Now we're not gonna do it.
On the teeth,
And it lets the natural light flow in the room right underneath it. We're going to handle that when we start. We use this random seam between the metal handrails here, folks.
Oh, the back right there.
Look at all the chocolate.
sir. Please don't stand on that.
One, two, three.
Blackberry and raspberry liqueurs. Grayson said she'd never really seen Calvin so
Big guy,
sociable
busy,
and
huh?
chatty that night. First found out about it though. We tried to recommend this to Mary and Davies, but she spun around on her wheels and told him, I told you fruit punch. Champagne's made from grapes. You gotta hit those punch.
Take your time. Just mind your footing. Please make use of the railing as you go along. Watch your step, please.
Denmark. The church?
Not the church, the king's beauty.
Yeah.
Folks, just make sure you're not blocking the door here. Please stay on the tour mat, sir. Yeah, it's pretty easy to get distracted and not watch where your feet are. Seeing this first time, sir. Thank you. Actually, I have people ask me sometimes if this is a master bed. It's not. It's a guest room. This is not the sir. It's not exactly like the guest room, sir. I haven't decorated most rooms as you've seen. Of course, we haven't decorated with that art and architecture well so much. But this outside just invitations. This Hearst wanted the real deal whenever possible, so the majority of furnishings are working. Everyone?
You're right. Real fast.
Alright, sir, please stay on the tour mats. So, sitting room would generally be used for anything you wouldn't be doing in your bedroom, but wouldn't be. The shamrock shape here is our signature of Venetian architecture time. Those are antique Venetian columns. In fact, we actually have a letter on file here that Mr. Hearst wrote to Julian Morgan proposing the possibility of purchasing pigeons in the courtyard here, because the courtyards, the actual Doge's Palace in Venice, are famous for their pigeons, for some reason. Now, Mr. Hearst never actually did that, since we work here today, we're very grateful for it, but there was some dedication on his. Perhaps not quite as much as that might suggest, though, because while this is a Venetian-themed suite, a majority of our effects here are not Venetian. Most are either Spanish or Italian, usually ranging from 15th to 18th century. And yes, Venice is a part of Italy today, but for most of the relevant time. So this column to my right and the one on the other side of the door that you probably can't see because it's on the other side of the door, these two columns are antiques, 17th century Spanish. So the two columns lining the door of the bathroom over there, and two by the window, and three sets in the first bedroom, those are not antiques. They're cast plaster or with paint and gold leaf made as replicas of these two. And that's the second category of historical non-antique. You'll be seeing a lot of those. There's also a ceiling here in the same ceiling as the first bedroom. In this case, neither is a replica of the same antique ceiling. Which has to do with how these rooms were made in the first place. So these rooms, in fact most structures are built on, were, as I mentioned, built with steel reinforced concrete. Specifically how that works is they assemble the frame out of rebar, build molds, and that frame poured concrete into those molds. It's very sturdy building materials, but not the nicest looking facade side. Most building materials like big gray boxes when they were first built. And covering up concrete is, like I said, the very last thing we've done in construction here, and the construction was actually finished, so I'm still in that. We talked about briefly on the side.
Không có người đi theo, không có người theo sau lưng bảo vệ, phá phách nè.
We don't do that for a number of reasons. It's the one guess you'll see at the windows, it's raining for starters. That said, there's another hallway like this one on the other side. Staircase to the left, the one to our right that we head looking straight at. The second column, that's where the elevator is. It's probably not stopped on this floor at the moment. It still works. It's usually used by collection staff and fragilize it now.
You see the frame?
So we'll be walking past it. So keep that ahead.
Yeah, for your single guest. The unmarried.
Quickly, Daddy, quickly.
So, welcome to the library. This was a functioning library in Mr. Hearst's time. Guests could check out books in this room. Could, frequently did not. According to what we have, it's very rare to check out a book here. Presumably there's just too many other things to do. It says primarily used as social. Guests want something like that. So guests here during the day, they'd be playing cards, chatting, playing Monopoly. You can have that back then too. It's one of the new friendships. That's what they start. And all sorts of miscellaneous shenanigans happen as well. For example, Amy Harpo Mars talked about time he and Hollywood actors marrying babies in here and shoved all the junk off the sides and the apartments across the floor. It's not junk, of course, it's more antique. It's not just the oldest antiques we've seen in the house. Not the oldest on the hilltop, the oldest I've seen in Doshi in the 15th century. The oldest I've seen in the 18th century. back then, there were a bunch of wires up there as well, like tied down the shelves. In case of earthquake, these days is more recent French called quake points. So the cost I used to not probably see that shelves. As it's on the shelves themselves, I want to ask like, what's the oldest book on the shelves here? The certified law first dishes alive or anything like that. The reason I specify still on the ground is Miss Hearst died in 1951, leaving the State Department in 1952. Those two events, the sons were about 2000.
Beautiful the door. Closest. Makeup. Restroom. Canopy bed.
So, unlike the Doge's suite, this is the master bedroom. Miss Hearst is staying here in the central house, and sleeping in this very bed. I actually get a lot of questions about this bed. Well, A question really, usually some along the lines of, isn't the bed a bit small? Wasn't Miss Hearst a big man? Because he was. He was about 6'3", and a surprising number of people come to her. Miss Hearst is a heavily religious man. He was not. In fact, in an interview with Newsweek, he described himself as a Christian of no particular denomination. However, I mentioned there are some rooms here we've seen that did, in fact, have an actual theme to the art. This is one. It's part of Miss Hearst called the Gothic Suites, or Gothic art. If you think about Gothic art, most of it was either commissioned by the church or an occasional work that was commissioned by the church. So it tend to be religious in nature, regardless of the owner's personal opinion on the matter. That said, being the master bedroom, we do have a number of Miss Hearst personal